and a woman shall compass a man. For quite a while in my mind, I thought that that verse, even though it's in Jeremiah, I thought it was in Luke 21. I don't know why that stuck in my mind that way. I guess I kind of processed it as being a sign of the end times. And even though people do speak about this, and I don't have the exact Jeremiah verse right now, but it's in the book of Jeremiah, some perceive that, like myself, because it makes sense, that in the end times, that's what it would look like. There is some line of thinking towards that. I'm going to talk about that. Just letting you guys know, my back is aggravated, so it's difficult for me to speak. So I have a voice disorder. 2 reasons for a voice disorder, but when my back is, it's like the referred pain makes it squeeze. So you hear like a roughness in my voice. So even if that isn't true, which it appears it's not, there's a lot of truth to that. And if you're born again, you shouldn't have trouble listening to what I'm going to say. And I have not pre-planned this. I didn't write things down. I wrote 2 things down. That's it. I just like doing it off, to show you that it is the truth. Not that I have to go and write it down. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But if you're going to be offended, don't watch this. How do I begin? I'm going to put a video that I want everyone who watches this video to take a look at, to see where we are today with women, with some women. Listen, this is not just women, but there's a lot of problem with entitlement of women. So when I saw a woman shall compass a man, I thought of many different things. And now you may be 80 years old and watching this. I'm 47. So I've lived, I'm a good witness. I'm not as good a witness as someone who is 50 and older. Just give me a second. Right? Or like my parents, but I think, I'm right at the end of Generation X. I think that may put me in one of the better positions, and the reason why is because it wasn't until I was like 20 years old when things were really starting to, the internet, right? Connectivity, and then it was only really just search engines like Google, Google just taking off. And, the first cell phones, mass-made cell phones. And chat rooms. So I remember being in those chat rooms, AOL, MSN. There were a lot of different ones. And that's where all this garbage of the society started to happen. I could see it then. There's just like, you don't know who these people are who are saying these things. And, like just disorganized chat rooms. And when I grew up, kindergarten, grade school, and all those things, is what do you want to do when you grow up type thing, right? And it's much different than it is today from what I hear from teachers themselves. I've heard from 2 teachers who I know who lived on my mom and dad's street where I lived, who both tell me, or sorry, not both tell me, it was one on that street and another teacher that man, like the it may be a better here in Canada compared to the States because we have it's just different education system. But even here, they were how long were they allowed to have these devices in their classes that it's like they all have ADHD. They can't concentrate on anything. So I got to turn on my TENS machine. I'm dealing with the pain. I joined a Muay Thai gym. So, I already knew I have to deal with pain because of it, but that's why I'm dealing with pain. Again, I have to learn how to train smart. So I joined an MMA gym, so so when I grew up, it was still kind of like, girls wore dresses. And listen, I don't know the way that is today, but, like grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, all the way up. And, it was nice to see women wear like nice sundresses. And I remember being in high school, and I felt attracted to the women who wore sundresses because it was natural, it was womanly. And, there was a lot of things that I'm talking about here. One, this could really offend a woman, but the woman's vote. What has that done? And I'm not saying women shouldn't have rights and all this stuff, but take a look at where we are. People like Nick Fuentes, right? I have watched a bit of him just to see what it is he's trying to say. Is he really a racist? Is he really, because we're so deep into so much, people don't know what is left and what is right. They're afraid to say their minds. Are you racist? Are you, it's like, can we just sit down and talk? But that's not what the higher ups want us to do, or the ideologies that are all around us. So, women used to wear dresses and were womanly. And that is the truth. You can't avoid that. When you look at the West, especially when you look at the United States, man, I'm glad I do not live there, but I live north to it, though. Just the entitlement, the feminist movement. Have we not given equal rights? Have we not? Have we not given this LGBTQ equal rights? Have we not done that? But you can tell it's not a real genuine movement, because if it was, you can't force people's behaviors. You just can't do that. There's always going to be a bully. There's always going to be someone who doesn't and shouldn't have to subscribe to the things that you believe in or the things that you want to be called. And it's worse where I live than where it's in the States. In Canada, it's not good that way. They go to the hospitals, you go to any institutions, and the university I am in that is in the United States, when you do forms and when you do all types of stuff, it's like she, they, all that stuff, and I never have a bad heart towards anyone, so no one can call me anything. You can call me what you want, but what you say will not be true. Pardon me a sec, guys. Now, if you're born again, you already understand. You already understand that, and you can see with man was born first, then woman. Woman came from man, woman. That does not mean we're better. That doesn't mean any of those things. But there is a divine order. And before the millennial kingdom, and before whatever is after 1,000 years, I do believe that we will all be equal then. There will be no difference, as Paul says. Man, woman, Jew, Greek, all those different things. And that's the way I think it should be. But listen, I don't know what God has in store for us, and I'm not going to pretend to know other than things you can see about the millennial kingdom. But let's look a little back. But I'll say this first, though. Women are looking to be equal. Are these really true feminist movements who really want things to be equal pay and all this type of stuff? Yeah, a woman should have equal pay if you're doing the equal job, right? And whether this is true or not, I can't. I actually went and I researched the stats, and it turned out that men were just working longer, and that's why their pay was higher. These were true. I did my research on that. I'm not saying that in some places, maybe a man gets higher pay. But you have to look at why. It wasn't until like Oprah Winfrey and when Hillary Clinton was on the scene with her husband, where I think she was one of the first who, I'm not saying one of the first to do this, but like on TV and to make it a thing. She was wearing, she wore suits. And, it's just like, there was just a waterfall after that. It was just an open gate. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with women wearing jeans and all this stuff, but they wear such revealing stuff. It's like driving in my car or my motorcycle down the road. I train myself not to look at women more than twice. I'm just a man, I'm just like anyone else. When you look, you're like, oh man. The things that they wear, things like these yoga pants, and just doesn't make sense to me at all. I'm not saying that, like a woman doesn't have the right to look good and stuff like that. But if you're born again, then you should not, what it says in the Bible, to dress modestly. I've studied a lot about trauma counseling. I've taken about 4 different courses just on trauma in different dimensions. And I have to say it. This is where they say, you shouldn't say this, but guys, listen, there are, on a college campus, I believe these are the stats. It's like 1 in 4 women will be sexually assaulted on a university campus. I'm not saying it's their fault. And 1 in 5 women will be either raped or something like that. But I will say this, don't put yourself in bad situations, obviously. But this is where we are in society. That's 20% of women. And I do think one of them is the way they dress. If you're going to show off your boobs, if you're going to show the very shape of your hourglass body or whatever it is, that doesn't do. But anyways, so they started wearing all men's clothing. And look what it says. It's an abomination to the Lord for a woman to wear man's clothing. That's what it says. I'm with the Lord on that. You and I should, and it's the same with the men, should not wear women's clothing. It's an abomination to the Lord. Because then you'll end up with feminine men and manly women. And I'm sure you've seen umpteen videos of why men are single today and the MGTOW movement, and man, it's getting, like, what is it, like 50% of men are just not even in a relationship anymore? And it speaks to things like, you talk about fairness, that good luck winning in court. She'll take your kids, she'll take your home, and you have to pay for her life? I don't know how that makes sense at all. That's why it's good to be born again, because if you get into a marriage, you shall not separate. And even if you separate, you shall find your way back to one another somehow. That's why it's important not to have sex before you get married, because that can cause a lot of difficulty, you know. And you know, who are you to say you are better than God's ideas? Because this was the way God wanted it. This is the way God wanted it. I'm not saying that when you get together with a man or a woman, you know, as a girlfriend, boyfriend type thing, right? You know, you got to get to learning to know each other and stuff like that. But I'm not a relationship coach, so let me pace here, guys. It's my back. It's remember, I pulled my back really bad in 2024, and when I do these things like the Muay Thai, I know I'm going to suffer, but I have to find better ways to train. But just give me a second, I have to pace. Oh yeah, something else. So, we see people homeless. A lot of people, and a lot of that's to do with jobs removed, like call centers where you and I should be working them, like our kids, like for our banks, for our stores. You know how they shipped all the industry out, and just you've heard me go into that. There's not many jobs out there. You know, you just can't go and expect to get a job these days. And even before they were bringing in mass migrants, because we depended upon these people who own these large industries to employ us, because it's our country. This is how it works. But when they took them away, we weren't left with many good jobs, right? Good, supportive jobs that will, you know, leave us with, we'll get life insurance, we'll have employment insurance and all those different things, you know, Medicaid, whatever it is. Where I am, it's free healthcare, but we have very high taxes. I do believe, absolutely, because we're just a blink of history of human beings. So if we've been here 6,000 years, which is what I believe, humans, we are just a dot in the sand of something that never should have been. And that's why we're in the end times. Things had to happen. And one of those things was women taking jobs because they don't want to be in their divine order. They don't want to be at home. They don't want to be at home taking care of the kids. And people get so defensive. Women become so defensive about this. You have a womb to create a baby. You know, that reminds me of Romans 1, where God has made it known. Every human being that is living, the things we see around us, that tells us that there's God. That's what the scriptures say. So to say that a woman should not be childbearing is to pretend that they don't even have a womb. And so it makes a lot of stress on men. So now women want to become the independent man, right? That's what they want to become. And then they get to a point where I have everything, you know? I have everything. So I don't need anyone. But when things get tough, When things get tough and you can't defend yourself physically, when there's like a meltdown of society, you're going to be looking to men. That car you're driving was built by men, designed by men. The building you live in, designed by men. Mostly by men, everything. All the roads you drive on, all the things you count on, made by men. Now I know there's women in factories and stuff like that. When you consider the hydro poles and snow removal and just about everything. It wouldn't take long at all for society to break down. And yeah. Do you think there's a reason why that is? Do you think it's just that men have made all these things and made it possible for women to live a life of wellness and all that? Like, the writing is on the wall, man. So I'm going to make a very important point that I don't hear that much. Give me a sec. Very important point. You can look at the Canadian military. You can look at the American military, where they had, like trans men in high positions, right? You look at the Canadian military, and you can see, I think it's the top general is, or the equivalent of like the Secretary General. Like the I can't think because my back is like the top commander is a woman. And I'm not saying that if it came down to it, she couldn't make good decisions. But I will say this. Most women live by emotions. And by that, it can if the natural order is not in place, and these women are out there in all these different positions, then that emotional self can dysregulate society. Would you not agree? So you see women in positions, and in the church, they change the church. They get in certain areas, they change those areas. And I'm not saying every woman does that, and there's really good women out there. The natural divine order is done. Hence why I started with a woman shall compass a man. That's what I thought it meant. So, and you just look at the entitlement of the women, and there's like, you could look at millions of videos. You could probably look at 1 million years worth of videos of just entitled women being caught on camera. And, women always thinking grass is greener on the other side. So something really caught my attention. Watch the video that I put in the description box. I want you to watch it. It'll just go to show you. And even though you're going to say, well, yeah, it's a woman, but it's about racism, or just, no, it's the way actually that some women act. Just watch it. So yesterday, this is kind of, I wouldn't say this is completely associated with what the topic I'm talking about, but I just wanted to talk about it. And that is Pam Bondi. I saw her witness yesterday as the Attorney General defending a damn pedophile. Like, they'll do anything. They'll do anything. I wouldn't regularly tell you to watch politics. Watch her witness yesterday. It's disgusting. It's gross. These are the very people. Don't get caught between left-right stuff. This is just God. But it sure is something to look outside and look down at these people. These were the people who said they were going to let everything out, right? We're the good side. Lo and behold, you have someone protecting a pedophile. And people throughout the earth. What are there? I don't know. I don't know for sure. I heard there were 18,000 people who have been exposed throughout the earth. Whether that's true or not, I know there's many of them. And there's a lot of victims. They were trafficking victims to these islands. I'm not saying island because you think that's the only place they're doing this? And you hear of eating children, and you hear of drinking blood, and yeah, I absolutely do believe it. Watch that testimony. Go look for that testimony. And I'll put that specific one for you to watch. I just want to think if there's anything else I want to say. Man, this thing keeps shutting off by itself. Maybe the time ran out, I don't know. Man, these are really good machines. Yeah, they're like 40, 50 bucks. But their batteries could last probably the whole day. Let me pace for a second, see if I can come up with some type of conclusion about everything I said. Just give me a sec. This is a reason why men are going to Asian countries. Listen, one of my good friends is married to a Vietnamese woman, and one of the reasons I'm sure that he married her is because she's not like the Western women, and very devoted, and why men are going over to other countries to look for women. And it's not because they're looking for submissive women. They don't know in their minds, they're really looking for a godly woman. Isn't that something that it's come to the point that men are so sick of entitled women who are only going to end up in divorce as women, 70% versus 30% for wanting a divorce. 70, so it's 70 versus 30. Isn't that crazy? And so men, even though they may not really know it, although I've been hearing it said, because I've watched some of these videos of men going over, I want to hear their explanation for why they're going over and not looking for a woman here. And they don't know it in their mind that they're really, for them to see a godly woman, they don't have to go anywhere if they truly saw one in front of them, right? Nice and humble, a good spirit. They kind of do and kind of don't is what I'll say, because I've heard them say, look for a woman who believes in God. But there are so many videos of women from other countries who are breaking down, like this is what this entitled woman is. This is, like you can see these videos of real women talking about the women of the West. So, I don't know. You don't want a woman, you don't want to be in a relationship with someone who wants to be the man. That's just not going to work. That type of thing will fail every time. And if it doesn't fail and it keeps going on, it's because the man is sunk lower. So again, I have nothing against women. I believe in God fully. I am born again, and I believe there's a specific order, and we live in a time where evil is good and good is evil, so they twist things around on you. We're in the feminist movement, whether you know it or not. That's why I have so many entitled women, and the things that people want to be equal in. They pick and choose what they want to be equal in. And the reality is, it would never work anyways, even if we sincerely tried, because someone higher up, let's not forget who owns this earth. It's the devil. Right now, usurped from Adam, so nothing good's going to come of it.